The history of the world of The Witcher is complex and multifaceted, majestic and exciting, beautiful and impressive. Its incredible feature is being full of rumors and legends instead of facts. It is completely not solid and monolithic. It is like a puzzle that needs to be put together, a puzzle whose pieces are hidden in completely different places. We will learn some fragments of the story from the description of the cards in a collectible card game named Gwent. Other details are hidden in the notes that the gamer can find while playing the trilogy of games of the Witcher series from the CD Projekt Red studio. Other can be found in the tabletop RPG in the universe of The Witcher, but the key material is the books of the Polish writer pan Andrzej Sapkowski. Of course, we definitely do not pay attention to the series from Netflix that utterly mocks the canon and sane logic. We use only books, board games, and the games by CD Projekt Red. All the materials from these sources complement the lore of the universe of The Witcher and combine into an incredible picture of the history of Neverland. A large-scale story, a brutal story, and a beautiful story. Because we have explored absolutely everything, having put the pieces of the puzzle together, and we are ready to tell this very story to you that would require a big one of a video and a story worth listening to. Therefore, do subscribe to the channel, press the like button, and of course make yourself some hot tea because it's cold outside and we're starting our first video on the comprehensive history of the Witcher world in English. You definitely did not know everything we're gonna talk to you about. The Spiral. At first there was nothing, as always. As in any other universe, we begin the countdown of our history from the moment when endless empty space ceased to be so. When existence itself was born. In the case of the Neverland universe, it all started with magic. It is magic that is the very essence and the basis of the universe. It is magic that is the original source of everything that can be grasped. How did magic arise in the infinite cosmos? Which god filled all the existence with this powerful energy? No mortal man can answer these questions yet. One thing is known, magic is that wild element of boundless energy that got stabilized over time. Its whirlwind slowed down and concentrated in one place, and it was from there, precisely from the streams of magic, that the spiral was formed. An incredible construction of a universal scale, an endless road of cold, destructive energy, the backbone of everything. It was on the edges of this spiral that worlds began to form from excess magical energy, one by one, as if they were apples that grew in the summer on this colossal tree. The spiral was filled with the most amazing and incredible stars, planets and satellites. The spiral got filled with worlds. Planes of existence got formed as well. The physical plane, the elemental plane, the plane of demons, and the other ones. Every one of them, like a parallel reality, existed separately, but was connected to the main physical plane by the unbreakable chains of reality. Yes, it was the physical plane that became the key link of the universe. Therefore, after thousands of years, when some creatures appear on the elemental or demonic plane of existence, they will always seek to enter the physical plane. But we will talk about this later. For now, let's return to the young physical universe. The original ones. It soon turned out that neither the spiral nor even the planets on it were the most majestic structures that formed. Because time went by, and with its course in different corners of the universe, life began to emerge, a true treasure, and life evolved. It developed until it gave birth to a sentience. It was really the sentience that became the most incredible creation of the magical element, because only beings endowed with sentience could determine the fate of all things. The first intelligent beings of the young universe were two races from two different worlds, the Elves, which called themselves the An Undod, and unicorns, who did not consider it necessary to give nicknames to themselves. They were called unicorns by those who came into contact with them, and they did not ask for another name. Beautiful, intelligent steeds whose foreheads were decorated with an exquisite horn, the unicorns possessed a unique gift. They understood magic from birth, felt its flow, and could use it to the fullest extent. They traveled on magical currents through the worlds, to the stars, and to the spiral itself. Using the strange roads of the spiral, they could visit any planet. It was as easy and natural for them as it is for a person to go outside the house and take a walk in the park. There were no creatures in any of the worlds that would be able to travel the expanses of the space with such ease. Almost all living and even intelligent races that emerged on different planets were stuck in the bubble of their own world and could not even think about the fact that there was something beyond it. Almost. but not all of them. Because on one unknown planet, there was a race who was able to comprehend almost the same extent of magical power as unicorns did. They were obtaining knowledge, having to overcome many hardships. They had to acquire it, try to understand and master it. But in the end, they overcame everything on the way to knowledge. This nation called itself the Yennefer. Later, on one of the planets of the spiral, the representatives of this race will be called Elves. The Yennefer were incredibly clever and could boast countless talents. Their civilization developed rapidly. Their culture quickly became majestic. Science and magic were easy for them. They developed and evolved really quickly. They studied all the phenomena they could think of. At some point in their research and experiments, the most powerful and insistent sorcerers of the Yennefer were able to master the magic of portals, subsequently exposing other worlds to their quest for knowledge. They traveled there, explored them, marveled at the beauty and diversity of life. On one of the planets, for example, they watched the ancient Homo sapiens evolve, master the simplest tools, and eventually create whole civilizations. The Elves saw how exactly mankind itself was being born. Along with the study of different worlds, the Yennefer met unicorns with whom they became friends very quickly. And really, why did these two powerful races have to fight? The unicorns were happy that they were not alone in their power, and the elves saw incredible possibilities in such an acquaintance. The magic of unicorns attracted and mesmerized them, and these races would continue to develop, reaching the furthest frontiers of science and magic in their knowledge. However, everything changed in an instant. A terrible cataclysm came upon the world of elves. People of the Yennefer ran into the white frost. By the way, do write in the comments whether we should make a separate video about it. For now, we continue. Age of Migration. Radical and rapid climate change, a large-scale cooling, a real ice age, turning blooming gardens into snowy deserts. Lack of food, wood, any kind of materials, impossibility to work and to live. This is what happened to the planet and the people of the Yennefer, unstoppable cold calamity. The elves were born in the cold and died in the cold. No magic helped change it, because there was not yet such a force that could rekindle the sun or to correct the planet's orbit. There was only one way out. It was necessary to find a new home. But how could one move an entire large nation from one planet to another? The sacred secrets of the world order were revealed only to a small, most gifted part of the elves. Would the rest of the Yennefer have to die in the snow? The elves could not allow this and began to look for a way out of the situation. In desperation, they turned to the unicorns for help. Maybe those powerful beings were able to help. Unfortunately, they were. The elves begged and the unicorns responded. The original race did not want to allow the disappearance of such a developed nation as the Yennefer. Unicorns possessed many secrets of this reality, and they were the best when it came to the journeys between the worlds. And that's why they were able to create the spell of incredible power, the Ardgate spell, the magic of the Great Gate between the worlds. A portal of colossal dimensions appeared in the world of the elves, in the dying world. And the same Ardgate portal emerged on another planet, a planet whose name was known then only to its native inhabitants. A planet where magic was not yet mastered. A planet that has not yet experienced the murderous power of the White Cold. The planet of Neverland. All the majestic elven people crossed the portal and left their native world to die in the cold. All the great cities, beautiful buildings, masterpieces of culture and art, all that remained there. But the people of the Yennefer survived, and before it new horizons have opened, and new challenges appeared as well. The migration process was not instantaneous, it lasted for several years. This time in the history of the elven people is called the Age of Migration. Throughout this era, some of the elves used the Ardgate Gate to explore the spiral because they wanted to continue to find things out about the universe. Truth be told, they even hoped to find weapons that could help overcome the White Cold. When the question of survival disappeared, the elves obtained some time for the search, especially since the elves did not meet any sentient beings in Neverland at first. Unfortunately for the elves, it turned out over time that the new world was not empty at all. Eventually, the elves met the native inhabitants of Neverland. The elder races of Neverland. The first of the challenges for the Yennefer people was getting along with the other races of Neverland. In the New World, there were several intelligent races that gradually developed and over time could claim to have achieved different heights in art, science, or even magic. The greatest power among them were the Vrans, the lizard-like humanoids who could already do many things at the time of the arrival of the Elves, for example erect huge structures, build huge cities with aqueducts and amphitheaters. The Vrans developed culture, language and science. Their people mastered metalwork in Whale, formed a strong army whose soldiers were dressed in good armor and had decent weapons. Even after thousands of years, the remnants of that very Vran civilization will remain as a reminder of their lost greatness in the expanses of Neverland, already inhabited by completely different creatures. The majestic walls of the city of Loch Moine will perpetuate the memory of the Vrans, but why only the memory? Well, there is no direct answer to this question, but there are a few facts. The first one, in the cellars of Loch Moine you can find Vran corpses, countless skulls and bones of these creatures with armor being there and the swords in decaying hands with traces of violent death on them. Obviously, someone killed these Vran warriors. This means someone fought them. We don't have many candidates. Therefore, taking into account that Loch Moine was later inhabited by elves, we conclude that the conflict occurred precisely between Vrans and elves. And now, let's talk about everything in order. The elves, the newcomers from another world, obviously did not immediately meet resistance and calmly settled in various endless expanses of Neverland. Later, they met the race of Vrans, and at some point there was a conflict between elves and Vrans. The elves were much more advanced, had more deadly weapons, and, most importantly, knew magic. The Vrans, on the other hand, were just beginning to master the simplest magical formulas and therefore could not emerge victorious in a conflict with the Onondaga race. The reasons for this conflict could be different. We will never find anything about them for sure. It could be territorial disputes or, for example, insurmountable cultural differences. In any case, the fact remains that very soon after arriving in Neverland, the elves began to fight the native inhabitants of this world, the Vrans. Yes, it was the elves who committed the first genocide in the history of Neverland. Ironic, isn't it? After all, history returns to everyone exactly what they deserve. However, there were other races on the mainland. By the way, they didn't have to be fought, and here's why. One of the first sentient beings on the continent were the gnomes, a race of very short, resourceful humanoids with pointed ears and long noses who probably lived exclusively underground before. However, for tens of thousands of years the gnomes were able to evolve and in the end switched the deep underground burrows for the endless expanses of the continent's surface. The people of the gnomes chose the mountains of Mahakam to live there, and the biggest cultural center for them was always Mount Carbon. This is a very ancient race, which however never looked for conflicts and avoided any confrontations as much as possible. In the wars between the elves and the Vrans, the gnomes chose to stay neutral and quietly watched what could happen next. All this time, they improved their skills in working with metals, and even after the arrival of the elves, they mastered this art far better than anyone on the entire mainland. Their weapons, their steelwork, even now this is still something on the verge of physics and magic, something absolutely incredible. The similar fate belonged to the dwarves, a race more warlike than the gnomes, but a little younger. The dwarves appeared in Neverland after all the other elder races, but before the conjunction of the spheres. If you want to try to describe the dwarf with few words, then say that it's a stronger version of a gnome. The average dwarf is slightly taller than a gnome, got slightly broader shoulders, and better physically developed. Also, the dwarf always has a thick beard and a shorter nose and regular ears. The dwarves appeared on the surface of the Witcher's world also from the dungeons, where they lived from time immemorial. There is a version that dwarves and gnomes are related to each other, but no one has yet investigated this connection in detail. It is known for certain that dwarves and gnomes get along really well, because the latter also settled in the mountains of Mahakam and absolutely calmly shared the space with the more ancient inhabitants. Well, if we take a look at the map of the world, then we can see that in various geopolitical games, the dwarves occupy a much more important place than gnomes, who never really cared about this fact. Communicating with the rest of the races is not really needed by the gnomes. Another elder race of Neverland, in addition to Vrans, gnomes and dwarves, were halflings. And they're also very short, about a meter tall, slightly shorter than dwarves. Halflings are not as stocky as dwarves, but not as thin as gnomes either. Their ears are neither pointed nor elongated, and their noses are perfectly proportional. They rarely grow beards, and in general their features are very similar to human ones, although in those days no one had never even heard of any humans. The halflings did not share the mountain massifs of Mahakam with gnomes and dwarves, but found their comfort in small villages, where they could do their favorite things: plant agricultural crops, raise livestock, and grow tobacco. Good-natured and always barefoot, the halflings are quite clever and cunning. In the absence of significant physical features, only innate intelligence gave them a chance to survive. The last elder race of Neverland were nymphs. All their various subspecies, dryads, hamadryads, mermaids, and naiads are included in this very definition. They were children of nature and built their civilizations in forests, swamps, and water bodies. The nymphs did not get into fights with elves, wrens, or any races, right up until the moment someone got in their faces. Then they showed a force of powerful resistance to the enemy. Still, the nymphs, being the closest creatures to the flesh of the world, understood magic better than the other native inhabitants of Neverland. Because, as we remember, all planets, all worlds, and existence itself came from magic. Therefore, it is easiest to draw magical energy from the elements of water, earth, and air, or extract it from plants and living creatures. The nymphs used it, although they did not really understand these rules. Nevertheless, their skills were mostly given to them by nature. This is how Neverland was right after the arrival of the elves. These intelligent races inhabited it, and this world had no monsters or monstrosities yet. There was no mind-blowing magic at the conjunction of the spheres. There were no humans, and there was no chaos that they brought about with themselves. But there was no balance either. The Ainunda disrupted the normal development of the world of Neverland. They came to lands that should not have belonged to them. They began to compete with races that should not have had this kind of obstacle in the form of highly developed aliens. They have changed the course of history. They changed the fate of this planet. Obviously, it couldn't just end like that. Of course, the story took a very unexpected path after that, by escalation, by chaos, by war. Because having escaped the death by cold and won a place under the new sun from the Vrans, the elves experienced pride, the greatness of their race. Their young generation, hardened in battles against the Vrans, wanted new challenges and wished for greater achievements, for new spaces and new worlds. The eyes of the leaders of this generation turned to the Ardgaith Gate, to the new planets behind them, and also to the unicorns. The elves very quickly forgot how the unicorns saved their people. The elves became jealous of the unicorns. The elves demanded their power. And what happened next? Then there was war. The sequel is coming real soon, so do subscribe to the channel, press the like button, and write about the facts that the authors may have stated incorrectly. We will definitely read everything carefully and improve our content if needed. A huge thank you to everyone for every view, and see you soon.